Welcome to this deep dive explainer. Today, we're unlocking a highly specific, ancient tradition, the Vichitra Yakshini Sadhana. We are going straight to the primary Sanskrit manuscripts, specifically the Kakshaputta Tantra and the Uddhamarashvara Tantra. The goal here is simple. We want to strip away the modern folklore and uncover exactly what these classical texts actually demand of a practitioner.
To keep things structured, we'll follow this roadmap. We'll cover her identity, the strict ritual rules, the original verses, the experiential fruits of the practice, compare our primary texts, and wrap up with some necessary warnings.
Okay, starting with Part 1, Identity and Appearance. Who exactly is Vichitra?
In the medieval Tantric tradition, Yakshinis are often understood as powerful guardian spirits or deities of wealth. Her Sanskrit name, Vichitra, or sometimes Vichitrika, fundamentally points to her divine beauty and captivating form. If we translate it directly from the classical roots, it means the charming one, a being of diverse form, or simply someone having an excellent appearance. This immediately sets a vivid baseline for how the practitioner is supposed to visualize her. When we cross-reference the Uddhamarashvara and Kakshaputta Tantras, they describe her as Vichitra Rupamai and Divyas Sundari, which means she possesses a divine, charming beauty. But here's where it gets really interesting. While the texts absolutely highlight her aesthetic, her most defining characteristic is actually geographic. Her residence and place of appearance is always described as being under the sacred vata, or banyan tree. That specific location is literally the anchor for her identity and the entire ritual. Now, you might be wondering about the details. What kind of clothes does she wear? What about jewelry, weapons, or specific personality traits? Well, we hit a wall here. Because we are strictly committed to the original text, we have to formally state that this information was simply not found in the available source. The classical authors were entirely focused on her overall beauty and that specific banyan tree location, completely omitting details about her wardrobe or armaments. If the manuscript doesn't say it, we don't invent it. Let's move on to Part 2, the sadhana ritual rules. These are the actual physical mechanics of the practice. So, how did a historical practitioner actually go about doing this? The foundational rules require an immense level of discipline. Just picture this. You have to maintain strict bodily and mental purity, a state known as suchi. You are sitting in a specific posture on a single blanket, directly beneath that sacred banyan tree we talked about. And you're doing all of this in the dead of night for one entire month without breaking the routine. The botanical and physical elements for the fire sacrifice, or homa, are also strictly choreographed. The texts mandate very specific offerings: honey, ghee, and milk. The flowers have to be exact too. The Kakshaputta calls for banduka flowers, while the Uddhamarashvara mentions champak. On top of that, these offerings must be placed into a very specifically shaped fire pit called a yoni kunde, which is a yoni-shaped pit. So as you can see, this is a highly focused, highly deliberate physical ritual.
Moving into Part 3, the original verses and mantras straight from the Sanskrit texts.
Rooting our understanding in the exact linguistic phrasing of these ancient manuscripts is absolutely crucial if we want to avoid modern reconstructions. This verse is from Chapter 14, Verse 2 of the Kakshaputta Tantra, and it outlines the core methodology perfectly. You can actually hear the steps we just discussed right there in the Sanskrit. Vata vrikshatalai, meaning under the banyan tree, shuchi, meaning pure, and yoni kande, the specific fire pit. This is the authentic, unedited classical instruction.
And when we translate it literally into English, we get a crystal clear, step-by-step instruction manual that ends with the ultimate fulfillment of the practitioner's desires. The logic here is incredibly transactional and precise. Purify yourself, sit under the correct tree, make those exact botanical and dairy offerings into that specifically shaped fire pit, and the goddess is satisfied, granting all desired outcomes and wealth to the sadhaka.
Derived directly from the textual footnotes of our academic source, we have the original classical mantra recorded as Om Vichitre Chitra Rupini Me Siddhim Kuru Kuru Swaha. This is a direct vocal call to the charming one of excellent appearance to bestow supernatural achievements, or siddhi, upon the practitioner. Now, how many times do you have to recite this mantra? The Kakshaputta Tantra mandates exactly 100,000 recitations. That's one laksha, just to achieve the desired state of success. That is a massive undertaking, and it's meant to be completed over the span of that single month of nocturnal practice. Just let the immense weight and endurance of that task really sink in. Which brings us to Part 4, Visions, Boons, and Fruits. What are the actual experiential outcomes?
So, what is actually supposed to happen to the practitioner during this month? Well, according to the Dhamma Tantra summary, the distinct environmental sign of success, or siddhi, is incredibly physical. It isn't just an internal feeling of peace. It's described as the sudden, intense, and violent shaking of the banyan tree's leaves right above you in the dark. That visceral, sensory sign is the empirical proof of the Yakshinis' presence.
Again, we have to strictly respect the boundaries of our classical texts. While plenty of other tantric texts love to describe terrifying visions or intense psychological hurdles, our primary sources omit any descriptions of specific tests, fears, or temptations for this particular Yakshini. So, academically, we just have to state that this information was not found in the available source.
Now here's a truly fascinating concept detailed in verse 1 of the Kakshaputta chapter: relational worship. By meditating on the Yakshini in a specific familial dynamic, the practitioner actually determines the exact nature of the spiritual fruit they're going to get. If worshipped as a mother, she grants rasyana, which are magical elixirs. Worshipped as a sister, she grants divine garments. As a wife, she grants complete wealth, desires, and sovereignty. It's a highly targeted, strategic form of spiritual visualization.
Let's move to Part 5, where we do some primary text comparisons and look at the differences between the tantras.
When you're dealing with ancient manuscripts, finding minor contradictions is pretty much standard. If we compare Patal 9 of the Udamaraswara Tantra with Chapter 14 of the Kakshaputta Tantra, we find two main divergences. First, the Udamaraswara requires 200,000 recitations of the mantra. That's double the 100,000 required by the Kakshaputta. Second, the floral offerings differ: champag flowers versus bunduka flowers. But scholars don't see these as deal-breaking contradictions. They're just natural variations in the classical tradition, likely representing different regional or lineage-based approaches to the exact same entity.
Finally, Part 6, Final Warnings and Conclusion. Let's talk about the ethical parameters here. Because this knowledge is preserved for academic and historical study, establishing an explicit boundary is absolutely essential for any serious student of Tantra. So we must clearly state, Vedmata AI does not endorse the practice of any Yakshini Sadhana without a qualified guide, guru initiation, and proper classical understanding. This is ancient esoteric material and it demands immense respect and scholarly distance.
On behalf of the Vedmata AI family, if you found our presentation informative, please share our video as widely as possible so that the authentic knowledge of Indian Vedic texts can reach the masses. Come, let us all participate in this yagya of knowledge. Har Har Mahadev, but it leaves us with one final thought to ponder. Knowing the intense, isolating rules of this ancient practice, would you have the discipline and the nerve to sit alone under a banyan tree in the dead of night for a month just to seek out the unknown? Keep questioning, and we'll see you in the next